whether it's the zombie apocalypse, whatever, our opinion of value is our opinion of value, and it most definitely has nothing to do with the contract.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. Dustin Harris hanging out once again. In the podcast here, I want to remind you we're sponsored by OREP Insurance. OREP is providing great benefits. I'm going to talk about one coming up. One of the great benefits of being a part of the OREP team for your E&O, it's orep.org. It's OREP.org. Sponsored by DataMaster. DataMaster saving appraisers time. That means they save you money, folks. How do they do that? Well, technology. Technology is there to help appraisers to be more effective, more efficient at what they do. It's datamasterusa.com. Again, datamasterusa.com. And speaking of efficiencies, Alamode leads the charge in the most popular software for appraisers and your form filling. Again, you're the appraiser, but Alamode can help you to be more efficient. Check them out. Go to alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE. Well, folks, I want to reintroduce to the program a great friend of mine, an individual who joins us quite often and is a wonderful individual to get to know, an individual that has a great plethora of knowledge when it comes to USPAP, state boards, appraisal processes. His name is Mr. Tim Andersen. Tim, welcome to the program, my friend.
Hi, Dustin. How are you this morning? It's good to be with you again, and my best to your family.
Thank you, my friend. And I am good. Thank you for asking, and the same to you and yours. We are recording this on a Friday. Tim and I had a conversation off the air a few minutes about the casualness of my appearance. None of you can see that, but it is Friday, and so I appreciate you, Tim, joining me on a Friday as you get prepared for the weekend.
You're dressed in a tuxedo compared to what I'm dressed in.
Tim, you and I on a regular basis have this series, I'm going to call it, of programs where we talk about questions that have come in from individuals, listeners to the podcast, and we have called it Dear USPAP Instructor. And Tim, how long have you been a USPAP instructor? It's been a few years.
So let's see. I've been a USPAP instructor for about, about 16 years.
Wonderful.
17 years, yeah.
Love it. And one of the things that we do here is take these questions that individuals have. And the question that comes in today is quite interesting because it kind of bridges that gap, if you will. And I really want to focus here on that gap between USPAP and client specifications and scope of work. Okay, so let's launch it by saying this. In fact, I'll just paraphrase the question that came in. One of the listeners wrote in and talked about the point that he had an FHA appraisal, Tim. So he had delivered the FHA appraisal, and after the fact, the contract date had changed. Okay, so something about so it was an FHA appraisal for a purchase. Let's set this up properly. So the appraisal is done for a purchase. I don't know if it matters it's an FHA, but the point is the contract changed after the fact. And an assignment condition came back. And I want to emphasize that term, an assignment condition came back, okay? Because I think that might be something we want to talk about here. To change the data on page 1 of the URAR because something on the contract had been updated. I don't know if it was the price or something else, maybe the concessions, maybe just the date itself. I don't know. But the appraiser was asked to, quote unquote, update his appraisal with the new information. This is after the appraisal had been turned in. What are some pitfalls to a question from a client like that, Tim?
Well, Dustin, let's consider the very word update itself. An appraisal is appraisal. It has an effective date, and ideally an appraisal has an effective minute. Because, as you're driving away from the property, lightning can strike and the liquid propane gas tank can explode, and boom, no more tough to update an appraisal. We use the term because it's simple, and we all more or less know what it means. Now, the concept of, okay, after the fact, the buyer and the seller decide to change the contract, it really had nothing to do with us. Our opinion of value is our opinion of value, whether it's under contract, whether it's got a mortgage on it, whether it's the zombie apocalypse, whatever, our opinion of value is our opinion of value, and it most definitely has nothing to do with the contract. The contract is merely another point to analyze, merely another data point to analyze.
Okay.
in arriving at a value opinion. So when the parties agree to say, well, okay, I'll pay another $5,000, or we'll extend the contract by 30 days, or whatever it is, the lender immediately gets back with the appraiser and says, here, update your appraisal based on this new contract. Well, chances are that's got absolutely nothing to do with us, quite frankly.
Okay.
That's got everything to do with the buyer and the seller and the broker and the lender, et cetera. Very little to do with us. Now, if for example, let's suppose that the appraiser appraised the contract price was $350, and the appraiser appraised it at $325, and a week later the appraiser says, well, they lowered the price to $325, so update the appraisal. Okay, but technically, because this happened after the effective date of the appraisal, the appraiser is coming back and saying, okay, I looked at it. It is technically a new assignment. Mm-hmm. It's a new appraisal. It's a week later. Okay. It's a different set of assignment conditions. It's a different set of assumptions. Let's face it, the market could have changed. Now, is it possible that it's changed very much? No. But I think we'll all agree that the market in Manhattan changed pretty drastically between September 10th, 2001 and September 12th, 2001.
Good point.
So yeah, it can happen.
Okay.
The big problem is the appraiser says, okay, no problem, it's a new appraisal. And the bank, bank says, oh, no, we can't do that. We can't put another number on it. Well, that's your problem, bank. Okay. Put whatever number on it you want to. But if you want me to change the appraisal, if you want me to update the appraisal, I'll do just that. I'll update the appraisal. And guess what? It has a new date, and I've got to reanalyze the market and blah, 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 blah. Now, is the market going to change that much in a week? No, we know that it's not. Right. Okay. So basically, out of courtesy, we do what we're asked. But in the most technical, in the sharpest possible sense, that's a new assignment with a new set of assignment conditions, possibly a new set of intended users, possibly new comps, possibly a change in market trends, etc. And the thing is, we don't know that until we do the analysis. Now, can we say, well, I'm going to do this update under the extraordinary assumption that nothing has changed? Well, here's the problem with extraordinary assumptions. You can't make them unless you believe that it's accurate. Mm-hmm. In other words, you can't extraordinarily assume your way around a problem. You can't say, I'm going to extraordinarily assume that this house I'm building in the middle of the Sahara Desert has the same value as if it were being built in downtown Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Right. No, you can't do that. Right. So to make an extraordinary assumption, for example, I go back to the polluted property. You're walking across the property and you got the six-legged frogs jumping on you. Well, okay, chances are it's polluted. You don't know that, but chances are it's polluted. So you say, well, my value is subject to the extraordinary assumption that it isn't polluted. But then you have reason to say that. You suspect, but you don't know. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you don't do the analyses, you can't extraordinarily assume away the fact that the market hasn't changed because you don't know if it has or not.
Right. Okay. So to boil it down, you're saying that this, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. What I'm trying to do is pare it back in a very simplistic form because I'm a simplistic person. You're saying it can be done, but technically it's a new assignment.
Yes.
Okay. So if it's a new assignment, Tim, so I've got the same effective date because the inspection has not changed, but I have a new signing date. Do I also need to include a statement in there that I have completed a previous valuation survey on this particular property?
Yes, you do need to make a statement about a previous appraisal on the property. Okay. And you don't have to say how much you appraised it for, or you don't have to say when you did it or anything like that. You just have to say, I have appraised this property within the last 3 years.
Okay. Yeah. So typically and this is just a technical thing, in our office, we usually report the previous services on what's called the USPAP addendum certification page. It does have a signature at the bottom. There's several things it asks, including exposure time and some other limiting conditions. But there's a section in there. So you're saying, if I turn this appraisal in, so I do the appraisal as of September 15th of 2020, and on September 18th, they come back and ask for a change. I need to analyze that, go through the process, report on whatever it is that the scope of work entails, but then change that USPAP addendum to say that, yes, indeed, I have, where before I said I have not, I have completed a previous valuation assignment on this particular property.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So at what point now, and this gets a little bit technical maybe for the audio, but at what point does something become a new appraisal versus just a change? I'll give you an example. We turn in the appraisal. It has an effective date of September 15th. It has a signing date of September 16th. And on September 18th, they come back and say, we want you to put 123 any street spelled out STREET instead of the ST period that you have on there.
Dustin, yes, you would indicate in the report that you had written 1234 Elm and the client asked you to write out 1234 Elm Street, and you did, and thank you very much. and that was a change, and it didn't mean anything. It wasn't you didn't have to reanalyze the market or reanalyze rents or costs or anything like that.
So that's the
and
key, is once you get
change.
into the analyzation part, that's when it becomes a new assignment, correct?
Technically, it's a new assignment if any assignment conditions change.
Okay.
In that particular instance, the assignment conditions didn't change. The lender just wanted street instead of stuff.
Okay, awesome. So when we come back from the break, Tim, I want to talk in more detail about the difference between assignment conditions, scope of work, and what USPAP does and does not require. I want to pause here and remind you folks that we are sponsored by 3 great companies, one of them being A La Mode. A La Mode, of course, helping you to be a better appraiser. Speaking of changes, it is so easy in A La Mode to go into a report and make changes. They have addendums, they have tools, they have the ability for you to do these types of things very quickly and remotely. Check them out, folks. If you're with any other software, I plead with you to check out A La Mode and see if you can save time and save money. I guarantee you can. alamode.com or 800 Alamode. Data Master helping you to save about 30 to 60 minutes per report. Even on the low side of that, folks, even if it's just 30 minutes per report, I want you to think of the volume that you're doing currently in the refi boom. If you could save yourself 30 minutes per report, what would that be worth to you? What's the ROI? What kind of cost would you be willing to put out there for that type of savings? Check them out if they are in your area, and you need to check that out, folks, because they're not everywhere. They do it right. They get a contract, an agreement with your local board of realtors. They're not screen scraping. They're truly a partner with your local board. So check them out by going to datamasterusa.com. Look on their coverage area. If they are in your area, what are you waiting for? Datamasterusa.com is where you go. Datamasterusa.com. Finally, just a short time ago, I was able to take a great class through OREP. I got CE credit for the 3 states that I am currently licensed in, and the great Tim Andersen was the teacher of that great program. Love his voice, love his knowledge, folks. This is just one of the benefits that you'll get from OREP Insurance. If you're with any other E&O company, I guarantee that OREP will shop the best price for you and give you benefits that you don't have with other people. Check them out. It's orep.org, OREP.org. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Hanging out with Mr. Tim Andersen, the USPAP expert. Tim, welcome back to the program, my friend.
Dustin, thank you. It is an honor to be with you. Thank you for inviting me to sit down with your listeners.
You know, one of the reasons, other than the fact that he's a friend, that I reach out to Tim is he is an expert on all things USPAP, and he spends a great deal of time advocating for appraisers, meaning if you find yourself in trouble with a state board and or you want to avoid trouble with a state board, Tim can help you when you get that ominous letter in the mail, but he can also help you to not get that ominous letter in the mail by simply doing a review of your processes and doing a review of your appraisals. One of the things that Tim has done for me and many members of the All-Star team and my dream team is that for a fee, he will look through some sample reports that you might have out there and give you some very detailed, very spot on instruction and counsel on how to beef up your process of appraisal and your process of appraisal reporting. Tim, you've been able to help quite a few appraisers to do this. Tell me what that looks like from their perspective. How involved are they? What's the detailed process to get some of those reports reviewed?
Dustin, when somebody sends me a report to review, I call it a friendly review because it's confidential between the appraiser and me. I send them a very detailed sheet. It can run anywhere from 8 to 15 pages of notes, and I explain that for example, highest and best use is kind of a specialty of mine. USPAP has 5 points in highest and best use that the appraiser is supposed to cover. One of which is the physical adaptability of the real estate. In other words, can it be put to another use? And typically, because appraisers are not trained in it, they leave that part out. And if your report goes up in front of the state, it's going to depend on who's having a bad hair day. If nobody's having a bad hair day, it's probably not going to result in anything. But if the state, for whatever reason, is looking for something, then it's highly probable that it's going to say, why did you not address the physical adaptability of the real estate? The standard rule 1-3A, whatever it is, I think that's 3A, Roman numeral 3 or 4, requires you to do. And then you have to answer them. And the answer, well, I never do that, isn't the answer they want to hear.
Right.
So one of the things that we'll talk about is the 5 points of the USPAP's model of highest and best use and how to meet it. And basically, it's the income approach. And you go, oh, my Lord, I am not going to do an income approach. Technically, no, you're not. What you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, the property would have to rent for this much for it to be worth via the income approach, the same thing as the sales comparison approach. And guess what? Those rents are not attainable in the current market. Therefore, the property is not adaptable to any other use. It's going to be a single family residence. You've just met the requirement.
Love it. Tim, we're talking today, of course, about the difference between, and not necessarily difference, but understanding that we have client conditions and we have USPAP requirements. And I sometimes feel like we appraisers blur the lines, right? So I've had appraisers on occasion in casual conversation mention off the cuff, and maybe if they thought through it, they might think better of it, but they might say something to the effect of, well, of course, USPAP requires that we do an MC sheet, so blah, 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 kind of a throwaway comment. But then you stop and say, well, hold on a second, USPAP requires that? Do you find that we blur those lines, Tim? And let's talk about the difference between USPAP requirements and scope of work requirements.
Oh, yeah. And it's very easy to do, too. For example, let's go back to the MC form. Oh, USPAP requires the MC form. No, USPAP doesn't require the MC form. When USPAP was originally written, the MC form didn't exist. And the MC form exists now. But USPAP has absolutely no requirement that you put an MC form in there. USPAP doesn't require you inspect the property. And I'll say that in a USPAP update class, and there's always somebody who raises their hand and says, well, wait a minute, I get that on every assignment I do. And it's like, yeah, you do. And you get that from the client, not from USPAP.
Yeah. So you told me a story recently of a question that came up in a class regarding sketching. Is sketching required by USPAP? And of course, if USPAP doesn't require an inspection, it can't obviously require sketching. But you've got situations where your client might require sketching, right?
Well, typically they do. The client wants to see, for risk assessment purposes, the client wants to see a sketch of the house, with ideally the rooms located, not necessarily the walls, but the rooms located. And one of the things they're going to look for is does the house have 5 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, which would be a significant functional obsolescence problem.
Years ago, go ahead. No, finish, please.
The desire for a sketch is mostly to help the client measure the risk of making a mortgage loan on that property in that neighborhood at this time.
Do these assignment conditions ever get blurred with USPAP? And what I mean by blurred is that you're standing before a state board and a client has asked you to do something. You either don't do it or don't do it well. Will state boards ever come after an appraiser for not fulfilling scope of work client conditions? And let me give you an example. In the past, you might remember, this was years ago, I believe it was in the state of Oregon, there was a lawsuit regarding the state board who was coming after appraisers, or at least was threatening to come after appraisers for due dates. They were not meeting due dates, and they were saying, well, that's an assignment condition. And because it's an assignment condition, it's now a USPAP condition.
Okay, and the state of Oregon was shut down rather substantially by the Appraisal Foundation that said, no, that's not a USPAP requirement. Now, Dustin, what happens is you get that letter, and the letter says, Dustin, you'll whip up to Star Valley, Wyoming, and you'll appraise 1234 Elm Street. And while you do so, you will do it while standing on your left leg with your right leg in the air. Okay, if you accept the assignment on that basis, and then you don't do it, then there could be some issues with your state board, but not relative to USPAP. It would be relative to you failing to comply with a contract issue. Okay. Because when you take that assignment, you agree to perform the appraisal under those conditions. And then if you agree to it and then don't do it, that's basically misleading. And you want to avoid that.
Yeah, which is why you and I talk often about remembering that the appraiser is a professional, and just because the client asks you to stand on your left leg with your right leg in the air doesn't mean you have to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, how high?
Right, just say, no, I won't take it under those conditions. Thank you very kindly.
Yeah, awesome.
Or say, to take it under those conditions, you're going to have to send me a really big check.
Right, exactly. Right. Tim Andersen, USPAP instructor, USPAP expert. Thank you, my friend, for joining us. How do people get a hold of you?
Dustin, my email address is tim@theappraisersadvocate.com, and they can go to the Appraisers Advocate on YouTube and see your smiling face on a couple of those videos, or they can go to my website, theappraisersadvocate.com, and read my blogs or listen to my podcasts.
How do they get your podcast? Since we're on a podcast format, appraisers are driving down the road right now, taking comp pictures, listening to you, and they think, I like Tim, I want to listen to his podcast. How do they get it?
theappraisersadvocate.com/podcasts.
Awesome. Tim Andersen, thank you, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Dustin, thank you. My best to your family. Please be safe and well.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
And speaking of efficiencies, Alamode leads the charge in the most popular software for appraisers and your form filling. Again, you're the appraiser, editor. Again, you're the appraiser, but Alamode can help you to be more efficient. Check them out. Go to alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE. Oh my gosh, man, it is Friday, Tim. Sorry. Editor, let's, right after the sponsor, let's back up a few seconds. And well, folks, I want to reintroduce to the program a great friend of mine,